to be one of the candidates in the second forum. So that would be, see how my memory is today. It's crazy, not good today. Kara Doder and Deborah Napper are going to go back to a room to be with one of our members for a while so that they aren't informed of the questions ahead of time, because both forums are having the same questions. So I appreciate that.
Hi, this is Mary Coyne Wesson again, and I'm famous for forgetting things, so I'm par for the course today. I did, before we got started, I did want to recognize, and if there were any government officials in the audience, if you would please stand so we can recognize you. All right, very good. Welcome very much. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to do the mic check when the candidates get up here. I'm letting them eat really quickly. So I'm Donna Peterson. I'm co-chair of Voter Services for the League of Women Voters of the Piedmont Triad. So our counties include Guilford and Forsyth, Rockingham, Randolph, and Alamance. So thank everybody for coming today, candidates as well as members, as well as people from the community. So this is a forum, it's not a debate, so there's not going to be any rebuttals. So Elma Hairston is our moderator, and she will go into the format of today's program after her introduction. So the questions were created by league members. Each candidate will be given equal time to respond to the questions. Some questions have been pre-selected, but members of the audience can use the 3x5 cards on the tables if they have a question they would like asked. If you write a question down, put your hand up, one of our ladies will come and pick those up and bring them up to the table, and we'll have those at the end of the forum. We're not going to have time for all of them, but we will have time for some of them. So the last 5 or 6 minutes will be devoted to those questions from the audience. Each question will be asked of each candidate, and the questions from the audience will have 1 minute each. So the forum is going to be recorded by Greensboro Community TV, which is the public access channel for Greensboro and Guilford County, and it will be available on the League's YouTube channel and via Greensboro Community TV within the next week. So Vote 411 is the League's nonpartisan digital voter guide. It has anything that you might want to know about voting in the state of North Carolina on it. And what I consider the most important thing is that all of the candidates running for office in our 5-county region have the opportunity to respond to questions about their specific office. And you can go in there, put in your address, see your ballot, see the candidates' responses to those questions and compare. And then that will help you make your choice. One other thing too is we have yard signs for Vote 411. They're up here. If you want one for your yard, you're welcome to take one and try and get it back to us when the elections are over, or save it for the next one, that's fine too. So there are 2 forums today. District 3 is going first, District 5 is going to be second, immediately after with a couple-minute break. Anything else? I think that's it, so let me introduce Elma Hairston. She is a small business owner, consultant, best-selling author, known for her key insights for business and personal growth, dedicated to maximizing potential in business, politics, and community. Please welcome Dr. Elma Hairston.
Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Dr. Elma Hairston. Welcome to each and every one of you. We thank you for your participation, and I'll begin by introducing the candidates for Board of Education District 3. And these are the outline of the rules. Candidate David Coates. You may come. Candidate William Goebel. Candidate Michael Logan, current Board of Education representative for District 3. You will see each of the gentlemen have a small black microphone as we proceed. We do have hearing impaired in the room, and that's what we will be accommodating for that, if you will. Thank you so much. Before I start, allow me to communicate the rules. Each candidate will have up to 1 minute to respond to the first question and 2 minutes for the subsequent questions. Please limit your responses to your own ideas and your own campaign. Questions from the audience will be allotted of 1 minute and will be asked of all candidates. Each candidate agrees to the public view of the forum by participating in this forum. Each candidate agrees to participate in the candidate forum as stated in the letter of invitation. It is our goal to present a forum that educates voters on the views of each candidate. We require the candidates not to refer to the opponent's views or actions in the community, but rather they present their own beliefs and plans for the position of representative of the Board of Education. We request that the audience refrain from applause, comments, or outbursts until the end of the forum. There should be no photography other than recording by the Greensboro TV and a photo of the candidates taken prior to beginning of the forum. All candidate remarks will be timed to ensure equal opportunity to speak. There will be 2 timekeepers seated in the center table. Would you raise your hand? Thank you so much. One will keep track of the time using a smartphone, the other will hold up signs for 1 minute, 30 seconds, and stop. I will rotate the order of questioning so that each candidate will have an opportunity to go first. The role of the Board of Education. Board members establish policies that govern our school system, including its curriculum, its facilities, financial resources, and personnel. The board evaluates the district's achievement and monitors the progress, making sure that goals are met. We will begin with the first question. Each candidate will have 1 minute for their response on this particular question.
I haven't done the picture yet.
First question. What, if anything, has been your recent involvement in Guilford County schools? First, Mr. Coates.
Well, my involvement really stems from this campaign. I'm not a long-term resident of Guilford County, but my background is as a school board attorney. So I bring, I think, a level of expertise in that many of the issues that are faced here in Guilford County are faced in different jurisdictions. And I think my experience gives me some insight into how to deal with things, how to differentiate between things that are fluff and things that go to the core of the mission of the school board.
Stop, please.
Thank you.
Mr. Vogel.
Is this working okay? Good. My involvement actually goes back to the time I was on the school board. I'm currently attending meetings. But this morning I actually had a meeting in Oak Ridge talking about how the cars are backed up on 150 trying to get into school. So I am getting involved on an ongoing basis with all the schools in my district to represent them. You know, I'm going to be the only person on the school, in this group here, that is a businessman with 25 years experience, an educator for 17 years, and still teaching, an Eagle Scout with 20 years experience, church group leader for 18 years, still as a youth group leader. I serve on the board of Positive Childhood Experiences, which was the Prevent Child Abuse North Carolina, as their finance chair. I've been endorsed by Guilford County Board Association of Educators, the Sync Compact, the Bike for Kids, Red, Wine, and Blue, and Youth in North Carolina. So I've been very involved in the community, as you can see. and my involvement is going to carry over to be a school board member that's very active.
No, sir. No, sir. No, thank you.
You want to shake my hand?
Representative Logan.
Thank you for being here. What is my involvement with Guilford County Schools? My involvement with Guilford County Schools has gone on for a quarter of a century. I've worked in Guilford County Schools for 26 years. I've been actively involved in the school board since about 2018, when we did the expansion of the CTE magnet programs at the Title I schools. Because as a CTE teacher, I understand where CTE lead, career technical education will lead students after high school. Now, Mr. Governor just asked me to shake his hand. No, I will not shake his hand. And if you will, please research why. If you do not know why, please research why. He is a very despicable person.
Please keep the comments to your platform. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their response for the remaining questions. In 2013, the North Carolina State Legislature enacted the Opportunity Scholarship Act, which funds vouchers for private school tuition. A proposed change to the act removes the income gap eligibility. What is your position on the funding of private schools through the voucher program? You have 2 minutes for this question. Mr. Bowles.
The additional vouchers, which will be going up to $1 billion, should have been going to the public schools. Removing that barrier of income means 70% of that money's going to 2 counties, Mecklenburg and Wake. So it's not going out to the rural counties where we need money. If you add the additional money that the state legislature said they didn't have, but they found for vouchers, added to what we're giving public schools, we're still ranked 45th in the country. My job as a school board member is to go to Raleigh and get these folks to start funding public school like we're supposed to do in our Constitution, that says everyone gets a free public school education. Our founding fathers in America felt that liberty was based on education of our public people and starting with our students. So if they can find the money for vouchers, they can find money to support our schools.
Representative Bowman.
What money has been denied to public schools? We only lose funding with public schools when students do not attend public schools. Now, in 2018, I was pretty against charter schools. I was against private schools or anybody going to those facilities. But with COVID, we truly have seen some of the issues and problems within our schools. And parents wanted other options. So if we create options within the public education system, not a dime leaves public education and can actually come back to public education. Not 1 year in the last 10 years has funding been decreased per pupil for a student going into. We've actually lost students within public schools. We have 73,000. We were down to about 68,000 now. And actually the funding has still gone up every year with the reduction in students. So where is the funding being removed? Where are we losing funding? And when it comes to the funding, if we put the funding where it needs to go, we have funding for our schools. Do we do across the board cuts? No. We do across the board cuts. We hurt all teachers and educators and employees. But there are segments within our school we could reduce that funding. When it comes to teacher pay, if you do not increase the teacher pay by the step level, reducing or increasing funding does nothing for teacher pay. You have to increase the steps for the employees.
Thank you. Mr. Coates.
Thank you. I think the whole voucher program, starting in 2013 and has expanded, is basically disgraceful. The General Assembly has responsibility statutorily for paying salaries for personnel. They fund over 50% of the budget. But they haven't kept pace, and this is just a diversion in my point of view, and it's a diversion of funds that's really not good. It's not only a statutory responsibility the General Assembly has, there's constitutional responsibility. And that was validated in Leandra 2 years ago, okay, where it was held that the General Assembly had failed in its duty to the children of North Carolina. That continues to be the case. Now, we have this program for which there's no constitutional, there's no statutory authorization, and they pour money into it. Then they pour mouth when there's a surplus at the state level. And we end up in a situation where over 18% of the teachers who taught last year in Guilford County aren't back this year. You got to bet money is a big part of that. So, when you pour money down the rabbit hole, you have to expect that the foundation of this country, this state, public education is going to suffer. So anyway, we don't have taxing authority at the school board level.
Start winding down.
But thank you.
Thank you. And I think the press is already taking pictures, but you all permitted them to take pictures, yes. Next question. Are you in favor of the 1/4 cent sales tax proposal for the support of Guilford County schools that will be on the ballot for 2024 general election in Guilford County? Why or why not? Representative Logan.
I am in support of it. I'm in support of it because the wording says it goes towards teacher salaries. But I'm also a realist and understand that with the change in commissioners, it can be removed from teacher salaries. I'm also have a concern when part of our district is the Stokesdale community, and the Stokesdale community is denied their portion of the sales tax. So how do you ask a community to support a sales tax when they're denied their portion of the sales tax? But yes, it does go to teachers' pay, and it is worded that it will go to teachers' pay, and that is where it should stay. But that can change with an election, so it's important how you vote.
Thank you. Mr. Coates?
I think it's very important to understand that the school board does not have the power to tax. In many states, school boards do. In North Carolina, that's not the case. There are 3 funders: the state, the county, and the feds. Now, the feds are cutting back because of pandemic funding. There's a proposal to greatly increase funding for special education, but we'll have to see what happens with that. So we're probably in a deficit situation with regard to the feds experience over the last few years. The General Assembly, it's disgraceful what they've done or not done. We're 45th in the country in new teacher pay. We have a national teacher shortage. We have a big teacher shortage in North Carolina. And, it's up to the state to deal with that. Now, the third troika here, part of the troika is the county. And the county is responsible for maintenance, and they can come up with money for bonuses for teachers. But we're in a situation, I feel, where it's all hands on deck. And if all hands aren't on deck, don't be too surprised if we start having problems. It takes a long time to build up a good faculty, but it can be destroyed rather quickly through lack of funding. So yes, I'm in support of this tax, but I think that's really not the issue. The issue is why haven't the funders come through?
Mr. Gold?
Yes, I'm in favor of the 1/4% sales tax. On a normal pizza, it's about 10 to 15 cents. That's what we're talking about. So it's not a big burden. It's going to the teachers. They absolutely need it. Yeah, I looked at our funding sources. We have 3, federal, state, and local. We know where state is. Federal's doing their part. But local, I wanted to see, I looked at all the counties in the state to see how is our county doing in relationship to other counties. I'm a businessman. Analytics mean a lot. So I dig into the numbers. I was looking at the numbers, and we're doing better than counties our size by a couple $100 a student. I think we're about $3,800 a student. But I looked at who's doing the most. 2 counties, New Hanover and Orange County, doing $7,000 to $8,000 per student. And so I said, how are they doing that? Are they taxing? So I went down and met the superintendents. And I said, how are you doing? New Hanover County said, we have a $1.6 billion endowment. We just pull the interest out. We only have a $20 million endowment here. My job is on the school boards to put an all-star committee together and start going around and building our endowment. And it takes years to build endowments, but we got to start now. That would offset some of these other issues like high-intensity tutoring. That's a great program that's going to be shut down because we lost the COVID money. So we could take monies from an endowment and fix that. So I've raised money in endowments for the Boy Scouts and for other nonprofits. I can do it for the school board. Thank you.
Thank you. According to the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction, the end of grade reading and math test results for the 2022-2023 school year show that Black student cohorts achieved at a level lower than all other race-determined cohorts for proficiency in reading and math of grades 3 through 8. What are your plans to reduce the achievement gap for Black students in the Guilford County school system, Mr. Coates?
Well, first of all, I think you have to understand that history has got us to this point. And there's a history of racism, white superiority. There's a history of power disparities. And here we are. A lot of the Black families in Guilford County are working several jobs. There is intergenerational poverty in many families. And the result is that small children don't necessarily have somebody to read to them, don't necessarily have somebody who can talk to them using big words and concepts. You know, recently I had one of my grandchildren go around in a circle, day, night, day, night, day, night. And he's pointing to a center, and he's going around. The center's the sun. Now, he's starting school on a bit of a hill. Too many of our children, too many of our Black children are starting school standing in a hole. Equity means that you do what you have to do to get everybody up to the same level. In my opinion, that's going to mean spending money, effort, professional acumen on preschool education, and going back quite a ways. There's some private efforts going on that needs to be stepped up if we're going to have our children, all of our children, achieve to their potential.
Mr. Gold?
Absolutely, there is a gap, and it's actually growing. We had a similar problem in Boy Scouts. we took a look at how many people of color were not becoming Eagle Scouts. And we wondered, why is that? So we dug into it and found out that it's not that the kids didn't want to do it. Same thing with this. These kids want to learn. We just didn't put the resources against them. And so what we did is we did kind of what they did here in Guilford County, high intensity tutoring. We did that in Scouts. We started focusing on kids that said, I want to be an Eagle Scout. And we put a mentor alongside of them. And they work with them every day. And, you know, particularly boys, they get to a certain point, we call it the fumes, gasoline and perfume. They start losing interest in Scouts. So we made sure we had someone along with them that would bring them along and make sure they made it over to the Eagle Scout. And when we did that, we increased people of color by 20%. It was successful. We can do the same thing here.
Mr. Logan?
First off, I would remove racism from the question. Black students aren't performing anymore. Students aren't performing anymore. In reality, when we look at school performance, we need to look at the expectations of that school and where that school ended up. Some schools that we consider low performing, they go beyond the expectations of that school. And that is what the focus should be on. When it comes to funding for different schools and areas, we should focus more on equality than equity. Equality means all students get the same funding, get the same resources. And whatever your zip code is a top performing or pay zip code or low performing, you should get the same educational value and money going to those facilities at these schools. And what we are seeing is money is not flowing to all schools equally. And that is what we need to change and address.
Thank you. The core values of the Guilford County school system are diversity, empathy, equity, innovation, and integrity. The concept of inclusivity is incorporated as part of the equity statement. In your own words, describe diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how you would support these values both within the classroom and within the faculty and administration. Mr. Gold.
Great question. First off, we need to include every student. Every student. No one's left behind. I took a class called Other Voices. It's provided here by the Chamber. And in it, we talked about DEI and inclusion. And I learned a lot of things. I learned a lot of things I didn't know. And I'm still learning. Dory and I, my wife, took a class called REI. It's Racial Equity and Inclusion. And talked about how we sometimes look through people and don't see their human beings. We don't understand their needs, their desires, their wants. And the way we find out is spend time with an individual, one-on-one, and talk to them. That's why I've invited all these folks to go have coffee with me and lunch. We may have differences of opinion, but we can talk them through and find some common ground. So I'm big about going out and talking to people that are different than me. In fact, I have a podcast called The Common Ground Show with Reverend Odell Cleveland. We talk about how we grew up in different environments and how we found common ground.
Representative Logan.
When a student comes into a classroom, a teacher is supposed to teach a subject that they're trained in to teach. And that is how we focus on teaching our students. We remove the diversity, equity, and inclusion. We teach our students. In our automotive class, regardless of gender, regardless of race, the material is the same. When we focus on the material within the classrooms, we don't have to focus on the diversity, equity, and inclusion because we're educating all the students in the classroom. And until we return to focusing on all students in the classroom, we will be underachieving within the public education system. and students will be leaving the public education system, which also removes funding for public education system.
Mr. Coates?
We have a diverse population in our schools. We've got kids who are academically oriented. We've got kids who are going to directly go into a job or the military. We've got kids who fall behind early and never seem to catch up. We've got to provide programs, and it's very nice to talk. We need to talk, but we need programs that work for all of these children. And we do. Do we do enough? No. But, in the 3rd district, we have the early college of Guilford, and the U.S. News. I don't know if the U.S. News ratings mean anything, but they rated #1 public high school in the country. That's sort of the top end. And, we need advanced placement courses in our schools. We need teachers who are qualified to teach those courses. All sorts of things we need. Okay, and I've expressed my views on some of this. But it's very hard to do that if you don't have the money. It's nice to have coffee pledges and talk. But, in the end, you need the money. Money talks, nobody walks. Except a lot of people walking out because the money isn't there. The best thing you can do for public education is vote for somebody like Steve Lucan or Margie Benbow. Yeah. Because they're going to have a vote on the funding sources. We don't. But yeah, we need to educate each one of our children.
Start
That's
finishing
inclusion.
up,
Thank you.
please. This will be our last question before we go into our questions from the audience. Child and Adolescent Psychiatric Clinics of North America, in a July 2023 review of the literature, found anxiety has been a significant problem since the pandemic. One national survey found more than 1 in 4 children report sleep problems due to worries and feeling unhappy and anxious. How do you propose to address this and other mental health issues in the Guilford County school system, Mr. Hope?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say in my former life, I was the founding president, organizer of a group that brought mental health services to our community. We got a grant from the county, $130,000, hired a couple of counselors. Why was that? It's because children were killing themselves. Now, during the pandemic, the stress on children increased, and they're dealing with stresses that people, a lot of gray hairs out there, like me. We grew up in a different time. The stresses these kids face are different, and they need support, and we need to support them through counseling in the schools. But we also need, and we provide some of this, and I'd like to learn more, interactions with community-based mental health services. It's important. It provides the support, the education, counseling that children need. Now, during the pandemic, one group of children especially felt the pressure, and this is our gay and trans students. Up to 50% of them, one estimate, contemplated suicide during this time. We have to do better by all of our children, but I think we need to understand their situation and deal with it appropriately.
Thank you. Mr. Coates? Excuse me, Mr. Gold.
I asked this exact question to Whitney Oakley when I was on the school board. I said, when I go into these classrooms and talk to the teachers about what their number one issue is, there's a number of issues, but one of them that came up was the anxiety of the students and how they lost their ability to interact with each other. And Whitney said, what we're doing to address it, we're sending more counselors in for the students, but we're finding that it's starting to transfer to our teachers. Our teachers are starting to have problems because they're dealing with all these anxious kids. We call them adverse childhood experiences. My wife and I have a nonprofit called Youth in North Carolina. We put together resilience summits to address adverse childhood experiences. We just finished one in Wilmington. We had 400 folks that are involved with youth serving organizations, and we addressed exactly that. In fact, the Sandy Hook Foundation called us and said, we want to come down and present specifically how to find kids that may be having anxiety and might be potential shooters. We can identify that. So we're addressing it with our summits, but in the schools, we've got to add more people. Less than 1% of our budget goes to mental health in our school budget. I think we need to increase that, at least till we get through this pandemic issue and have kids start to interact more and more. We saw the same thing in Scouts. Same thing in Scouts.
Representative Logan?
To look at the situation, you also have to look at where the situation came from. Part of the situation came from our schools being shut down within Guilford County. Our schools being closed, students being forced to be online, students being forced to communicate electronically with their teachers, no personal interaction. As an educator, I was not surprised what we saw when the students came back to the classroom. We knew what was going to happen within the hallways, we knew what was going to happen within the classrooms because the students had not been able to socialize with each other. So the reality is we're fixing the situation, a problem that we created ourselves. We also created the problem of students leaving our schools again. When the charter schools in the community, when private schools in the community, and the academies in the community were open. And I'll give you a real prime example of driving to work one day, passing a school bus. And that school bus is on a field trip going to Raleigh, to the state fair. While I'm going to my school, we do a field trip in the media center, watching online. I had students actually asking me, can I go back to my other class, please? I don't want to sit in here and watch this. We created a large portion of the situation with the way we handled COVID. We kept our schools shut down. We kept our students unsocialized. So the true way to address that is to bring more public involvement. Student involvement in sports, students involved in clubs, student involvement in activities, and that is how we will help our children.
Thank you. We will now move into the questions from our audience. The first question is, who should make decisions about school library books? Mr. Coates?
School librarians and consultation with teachers. You know, the phrase age appropriate is out there, and you know, materials presented to children should be age appropriate. But age appropriate shouldn't be a way of masking censorship. And you know, there's a lot of pressure to censor books, magazines, etc. And I think it doesn't serve children. We have children who have different orientations, etc. And at some point, they ought to be able to go to the school library and find a book they can relate to, find something that says something to them. So, you know, librarians.
Mr. Gold?
We have a policy procedure in Guilford County right now that is made up of a committee of parents and educators, and they review books as they come in, and they make the decision. Now, there's the ability to do a appeal on that if you want. So we've had some people appeal it, we've reviewed books. So we already have a process in place. So it's parents and educators is my answer.
Representative Logan.
Banning books within the schools. We haven't banned any books. No books have been banned. You can access and find them in libraries throughout our county. Now, there has been some question over age-appropriate material. Now, if we have software on our computers that the students have access to block material that you can actually check out in the media center, that should be questioned. Should a student have access to something that their parents do not want them to have access to? No. Parents should be in control of their children reading materials. Now, as taxpayers, the members sitting out in this audience, unless you have a child in the public schools, you can't question it. Only the parents can. And if the parents will come forward, then we can address the situation.
Next question from the audience. Why do you believe so many parents are taking their children out of public schools, home training, charter, and private schools? Mr. Gold.
I'm a business person, so I believe in competition. And I think it's healthy for us to have alternatives to public school. Every parent should have a right to educate their child in the manner they feel is appropriate. And I don't know if we're losing them because they're going to public school, going to private schools, going to charter schools, or being homeschooled. But I think there's a value in each of those. And if we want to be successful, we need to be, when I lived in Connecticut, the first thing you do is you ask, where are the good schools? And so what I want people to say when they come to North Carolina, where are the best schools? They're in Guilford County. We need to be the best school offering the most opportunities. And here's 123 options that kids can choose. Aviation, skilled trades, on and on. So I think we give them a lot of choice. We just don't advertise it and market it strong enough.
Representative Logan.
As far as parents pulling their children out of school, is it a charter school or private school necessarily better than public school? No. But as it is, if you go to the NC school report card, there is not a failing charter school or academy within Guilford County schools. There are failing Guilford County schools. So if a parent has a child in a failing school and they would like to remove them into an alternative learning environment, they should have that option. Now, if we have a high-performing school and students or parents are pulling their students out of a high-performing school to place them in a charter school or academy that doesn't meet the same expectations of that public school, then we really need to be asking why parents are doing that. And that should be of great concern.
Mr. Coates.
Thank you. Parents certainly have the right to educate their children in whatever school, homeschool, they feel is appropriate. What shouldn't be happening, in my opinion, is public money being used to support private schools. Charter schools are a bit different. And I'm not crazy about spending money coming out of the local school budget for charter schools. I wish the funding was different. But charter schools are here to stay. I think really excellence in the public school is what's going to bring children back, parents back, and we have to focus on that and let the chips fall where they may.
Next question. Please give an example of a time when you worked together with someone with a strong opposite opinion towards a common goal for the good of the community. Mr. Gold.
I think it speaks to my podcast with Reverend Odell Cleveland called The Common Ground Show. His background was he grew up in the projects of Charleston with a single handicapped mom, 3 kids, no food. Got called the N-word on the way to school. His great-grandparents were slaves that cooked for the Klan. Totally different. I grew up in an all-white community in Ohio. No people of color, no Jewish people. I never met any. And so Odell and I sit down and we talk about how we have common ground. And our common ground is found in our ability to work on our faith-based beliefs, our community beliefs, our wanting to be a servant in the community. So we find common ground in a lot of different ways. We ask people that on our podcast. One guy said, I find common ground by having a meal with somebody. Over a meal, we find common ground.
Mr. Lumber.
Well, I'll go back to the school board. I've actually been able to work successfully, I believe, with the 6 Democrats on the school board. I've actually been able to hold school board business with those Democrats on that school board. And they literally drug me through the mud. They called me a racist, they called me a bigot, they personally attacked me. And I was a Guilford County public educator in the classroom. And they were attacking me as a racist and a bigot. Because they did not want me on that school board. And that was fine. I was good with that. Them not wanting me on that school board did not bother me because I had the support of the people that wanted me on that school board. Now, there is a majority of business that we do as school board members where we have to interact with the public. And at that time, we do need to come together and work for the public. The school board is more than what most people think it is as far as public relations. And we do need to work together with that.
Mr. Coates.
Well, I think we're all in this together. Okay. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, progressives, conservatives, MAGA. Yeah, we're all people. And, you know, it's been, I practiced law for many years. When people knocked on my door, came to my office, I didn't ask them to run down their views on a variety of subjects. You deal with people one-on-one. And I assume the best of people. And if you assume that, oftentimes you can work things out. Recently, I sat down and talked for quite a while with a fellow who had a Trump sign in his front yard. You may have picked up the idea I'm not a big supporter of Mr. Trump. But, you know, we talked for half an hour. And we came to some understandings. And I think that's the American way.
This concludes the Board of Education District Reform, and thank you for participating from all 3 candidates. We will take a 5-minute break while getting ready for District 5 forward. Remember, early voting begins on October 17th. Don't forget to look for more information on candidates' views at vote411.org. Let me just say this, Vote 411 will go live for the North Carolina Board of Elections, has the ballots printed, and the last we heard is going to be next week. So take about a 5-minute break, and we'll be back in just about 5 minutes.
goes like this. Oh, Big Tom Austin, he swung a baseball bat, broke in with the Cardinals, first black man to do that. 1954, a Bigfoot in the door. Augustus Bush, the beer tycoon, made a big production, beer and silver spoon. Just one black man was standing in the room. Give you 2 Stan Musials, 1 Steve Bilko, throwing country slaughter if you let Austin go. A Big Tom Austin, Cardinals 54. Seen him yesterday down at the Woolworth store. A Big Tom Austin, he went to Dudley High, played ball for the Aggies, learned to catch high flies. A Big Tom was a slugger, kissed Greensboro goodbye. San Diego Padres, 23 home runs and RBIs. Big Tom got 101. Headed for St. Louis, the segregation. Give you 2 Stan Musials, 1 Steve Bilko, throwing country slaughter if you let Austin go. A Big Tom Austin, Cardinals 54. I seen him yesterday down at the Woolworth store. Eating meals alone, Big Tom Austin, in a 3rd-class coach the whole season long. Just like Willie Mays and Jackie Robinson, voices in the wind down in Mexico. Our big forgotten friend back in Greensboro, eating apple pie down at the Woolworth store. Give you 2 Stan Musials, 1 Steve Bilko, throwing country slaughter if you let Austin go. A Big Tom Austin, Cardinals 54. I seen him yesterday down at the Woolworth store.
It's so good. I'll give a little taste. Oh, that's so good. So this is really good with a cup of coffee or glaze of tea. You should know from it. In the morning, my mother would make for me what she called the Jewish package. Okay? You didn't know this, did you? So give a kick. We've got here everything. A bagel, cream cheese, onion. We've got tomato, and of course, Kevek. We got here also lox, so delicious, with, of course, a pickle.
Oh, no, you go to it.
You won't be jealous?
No.
All right, then I'm going to take a taste because it looks good to me.
It does look good.
Oh, boy. With a cup of coffee, the Jewish package is perfect.
I think that's what sports is the most. And I think that parents have to realize that, you know, the chances are your kid's not going to be a professional baseball player or professional basketball player or maybe even a college player. But just give it all you got. The one thing people say, my son's never going to be a pro baseball player. Well, how do you know? Give it all you have, because I didn't think I was going to be one, right? Give it all you got, and then figure, you know, and if you give it all you got and it doesn't work out, then you're not good enough, right? And maybe you're not. But how do you know at 13 if you're not good enough to play pro baseball at 20? How do you know? But just because you're great at 13 doesn't mean you're going to be great at 20.
because there's a lot of people chomping at the bit.
You better
now.
believe it.
And you know all. I mean, you like we said, you know all about this because you're in that world. But you know, I guess from when you were starting, from when you were a kid, and I'm sure there were camps and things, but now it is just elevated.
Yeah, I never went to a
seems-
baseball camp.
Right. That's
Never.
what I'm saying. Is you
Never.
usually played with your friends
Yeah,
or whatever.
that's all.
You might
I
have had
learned,
a league team.
I
or-
learned more about baseball playing without coaches than I did actually playing in the Glen Oaks Little League, right? We used to go out and play wiffle ball and stickball and baseball on the baseball field if nobody was there. I learned more about baseball that way than I did. And the competitiveness against your friends, these are your buddies, and all you wanted to do is beat the you-know-what out of them on the field, whether it was football, basketball, hockey, baseball, it didn't matter. And then after the game, go to the pizza place and let's have a couple of slices and a Coke, you know? So I think that's what people got to realize. I remember when I went to I didn't say this before, but when I went to spring training, my first spring training, I looked out on the field, and there were 50 guys that could do what I could do, that were a foot bigger than me. You know, reality sets in, right? Okay, who they gonna choose? If I steal 40 bases and he steals 40 bases and we're against each other, who they gonna choose? A 6'4" guy or a 5'5" guy? So, but again, I graduated college already. I knew I was smart. I was realistic, right? But I wasn't ready to go into the real world yet, so I just kind of milked it for 3 years, you know, and had fun doing it.